Hi folks, Hadley Trounston from Jade Software here again. In this video we're going to look at building our first JOOB application. So let's start by adding a new project. Let's just do a Windows Form application, call it JOOB Mobile Application. Before an application will work with the JOOB database, we need to make sure a few properties on it are correctly set. We need to make sure it's using the full-blown .NET Framework 4 and not the client profile. And we also need to make sure that it's targeting any CPU. We need to reference two JOOB DLLs. These DLLs are in the folder program files /jade software /joob /your version/bin. The files are after a jadesoftware.joob and jadesoftware.joob.common. We also want to add a reference to our database project, JOOB Mobile. We also need to add some connection information to our app config file. There's a template app config file in the help files folder of your JOOB installation. So we're just going to copy and paste that in and then change our relevant parts. Oops. So the only things we're going to change is the name of the connection string to JOOB Mobile. We'll change that here as the default connection as well. And then scroll all the way across to where you see schema equals. And we need to change that to be the name of our schema as well. So JOOB Mobile. So that means that this JOOB Mobile connection string has access to the classes we defined for the JOOB Mobile database project. Okay, so we're finished with the app config file. Let's rename our form1.cs to something a bit more relevant. And then using the power of technology, here's a form I've prepared earlier. So let's double click on our save button and go and add a couple of using directives. The first one we want is a reference to a JOOB Mobile database project. So this gives us access to the classes that we defined in the JOML file. We also want to add a reference to jadesoftware.joob.client. This gives us access to a JOOB connection and also JOOB transactions. So in our save method, let's just quickly make some vars to put those username and full name values into. And then we're ready to get started talking to the JOOB database. Before we can work with our JOOB objects, we must connect to the database. This is where a JOOB context object comes in. It grabs a connection to the database from the pool of available connections. The default noParameters constructor uses the default connection information that we specified in the app config file. So that's going to look something like this. When a connection is no longer required, the JOOB context object should be disposed of to release the connection back to the pool. So we do that just like this. Simple enough. We can tidy this up a tad by putting it all into a using statement. This means the dispose is automatically taken care of for us. Now we need to enter transaction state so that we can begin writing things to the database. The JOOB context object has a method for beginning a transaction. The method returns an IDB transaction object with methods for committing or rolling back a transaction. A transaction object must be disposed of at the end of the transaction. The simplest way to do this is by putting it into a using statement. Something like this. Begin transaction. So now that we have our JOOB context and we're in transaction state, we're ready to start writing instances of our person class to the database. So let's go ahead and create a new person. We can assign the properties to this person just like any plain old C object. And also for the username. And there we have it. That's our person object created. However, if we were to go ahead and run this code as it is now, nothing would actually be written to the database. This is because we haven't committed our transaction. If we don't commit a transaction, it is automatically rolled back. Let's just put a nice little message box after this so that we know our user has been created. And then I think we can go ahead and run this. So username, Paddles, that's me, and Hadley Trouncin for the full name. Hit save. User Paddles has been created. Excellent. Now we can go back to our JOOB Explorer, expand out our JOOB mobile database, and under Object we'll see the Person class. We can right click on Person and select All Instances. There you'll see Hadley Trouncin, username Paddles. That's all we have time for in this video. Thanks for watching.